Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind, Transform Your Life radio, podcast, and television show. I'm your host, Life Coach Brenda Young, and sitting in the guest chair today is Samantha S. Woo. Samantha is the author of How to Stop Yelling and Start Connecting with Your Highly Emotional Teen. So listen, anyone that's listening here, where you have an emotional teen, you know somebody that has one, this is really good information. So stay tuned to the end, because you know what? Even if you got one little nugget that's going to help you with your emotional teen, and of course, then, you get one little nugget and then you go and get Samantha's book to get the whole wide spectrum. So welcome, Samantha. I'm going to enjoy our conversation today.
Thank you for having me. I so appreciate this time together. Yeah.
Yes, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. All right. So, as I mentioned, Samantha is the author of the book, How to Stop Yelling and Start Connecting with Your Highly Emotional Teen. She is also a certified internal family systems therapist, and she also has her own private practice, helping anxious people find their spirit-led balance. So we're also going to touch a little bit on the Holy Spirit and Christianity and how that helps you to be compassionate with your teens. So Samantha is married. She has 3 young adult children. I guess she's calling young adult teenagers.
They're at the cusp of teenage period and young adult, like late teens,
Right.
early 20s, so
Yeah, young adults. All right. Yes. So she has lots of schooling in the parenting realm, both past, present, and in years to come. She is a believer in the process of sharing, even when things are not perfect, like your teenagers. All right,
and the
Samantha.
parents of.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So as we start off, can you give us a backstory of this book? How did you come about to write it? I know that
Yeah.
you're a therapist and all that, but
Yeah.
why the parenting book? Yeah.
Yeah, so it kind of happened organically because I am a counselor and I'm a parent. And so I had all these like parents around me, both in my clinical practice and as well as, having lunch together with my friends. And we happened upon a common theme is how do we deal with our teenagers, right? And so
Yeah.
here I was with this wonderful tool I had in my clinical practice that was like really bringing results. And so I felt kind of almost obligated to share that because it is a tool that is hard to access. It's internal family systems is this booming like therapy, model that it's hard to get trained in. People wait like years to get in to be trained in it. And certainly is a therapy model. So it's not really accessible to the everyday person unless you're in therapy. So I thought, shoot, like we need this. People are hurting, like, teenagers are acting out, our society is suffering for it. We need this. So kind of happened organically as like I was out of the blue, like invited to do a workshop on parenting with New Life. I'm a New Life counselor, the New Life radio talk show. Yeah, they were doing a workshop on parenting. I was like invited, and there I learned some things and saw the need, and it just kind of like compiled into this book everything that happened.
Yeah. Well, as a Christian, you know that everything is, I like what you said in your bio, spirit led.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, we're guided to do the things that we were born to do, like what our purpose was.
Yeah.
And as a parent, as a counselor, and like you're saying also that parents are hurting. I mean, I will tell you that between the ages of, maybe 13 and 19, it is a really, really difficult time for teenagers and parents. And I remember, I have 2 adult children. They're not young adult anymore. They're adult children. And I remember when my son was around 16 years old and he was acting out, and somebody told me that, you know what? between the ages of 16 and 19 or something like that, or even 14 and 19, they all act out. And then after they hit that threshold, then they become better. Um, is that your experience as well?
Yes, more or less. And I feel though, it is a very critical period, where depending on how that critical period is dealt with, right? That they
Okay.
can either come out, all the better, or some people just kind of get stuck there. And and so you have all these, teenagers walking around in adult bodies, which we sometimes work with, sometimes we live
Yeah,
with,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, which is okay. And I guess that's part of this book too, how to, help heal that as well. But yeah, I do agree that they do come out of it. And it also depends on how we navigate that as well. Yeah.
Right, right. Yes, yes, yes. So, boy, I'm listening with wide ears because I adopted 3 children, and I had a really, really difficult time with twin girls, and because they came in from the foster care system, so they came in with trauma and they came in with all these different things. So I had a really difficult time. So I would have loved to interview you while I was going through that. But all right, to help the other women or the other parents that are going through that difficult period right now. So your book
Yes.
talks about a method of parenting that's called Embrace. Now it sounds like Embrace, but it's really an acronym, EMBRACE.
Yes.
So talk to us about that. Talk to us about how that came about, if that's part of the IFS therapist method, or how did you come up with that, and basically what it stands for?
Yeah, so I'm so glad that you noticed that it was a both an acronym and the word, because that was part of the intention in me coming up with this. This is a 7-step layman's approach that I came up with based on internal family systems model called, that was come up by Dr. Richard Schwartz. So he came up with the internal family systems. I took that, knowing that how hard it is to get trained into and to, give it to the lay people. So I digested it, brought in whatever I could, and then came up with this for the everyday person, everyday parent that's dealing with teenagers who are tempted to yell or anything else, right? Or shut down or, whatnot. So it's a 7-step model. And the 2 main aspects of this is very similar to the internal family systems, which is that we're all made up of parts inside of us, and we have access to this healing inside in the deepest part of our souls through the spirit, and basically to check our own parts before we check somebody else's parts. So, this whole idea of parts is also confusing for the everyday person. So if I can just take a second to kind of, yeah. So basically the internal family systems believes that we're all born with parts. Like for instance, the way we have hands and feet and all these physical parts, that our personalities also have parts. That we have personality parts that are, meant to do, the ones that are meant to learn, the ones that, like the ones that are yelling at the sidelines of a soccer field is a different part than a part that's like, praying in the church or whatnot. So just kind of recognizing we all have these parts. And then as we live and have traumas, these parts become very burdened with messages that they take in, and then they become very extreme in their behavior. And then their behavior kind of takes over other parts, just like they're very disconnected with other parts and you and the Holy Spirit inside, and then they just kind of take over. So this view is what we're kind of bringing in to the parent-teen relationship is so that, like, when a teen is saying, I hate you, get away from me, and slams the door, that we can see that it might be an unhealed part of them and not all of them, because it's so tempting for us parents to say, oh my gosh, my teen hates me, well, I hate them too, or like, what am I putting up? Right. But like, to be able to take a step back and say, it's a part of them and it's an unhealed part of them, and kind of helps us to get curious, and also to recognize when we're reacting and going, well, I hate you too, and slam the door on them. Like, what part is that inside of
You can
us?
say, get back in here right now.
Yeah, exactly, right. So that's what usually happens, right? But we can get curious about that. What part of me is reacting to that? And as we kind of become more aware of our parts and their parts, we kind of have more space to kind of let the spirit work and help us to connect all these parts that are like pretty much isolated and extreme, because they don't know that they have access to this healing center. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I don't know if that, maybe I should pause and ask, like, is there any question? I know that was a lot.
No, I understand. You answered the foundation of how you came about the 7-step method.
Right.
And you brought up something that I actually never heard before, where we have parts like personalities. Because and it's very interesting, because one of the things that I do is I do yell.
We all do, right?
That almost immediately, you know what I mean? And I'm not sure what unhealed part that I'm bringing in, but I'm not a soft-spoken person like you are. If you're a soft-spoken person, then I can understand you're saying, I don't understand why you're behaving like this. You know what I mean? I'm gonna yell, right?
Yeah.
So I understand what you're saying, because that's my unhealed part, maybe, or maybe my parents yelled at me and that's what I'm yelling. But I wanted to understand, the question was, what does the EMBRACE mean?
Yes.
Does it have like words, like each letter, does it mean something?
Yes, it does. So E stands for exhale. It means to take a step back. You know how we sigh when we're really stressed? We go, that's like the body's natural way of exhaling. So the E stands for the exhale. And then the M is to move. And it's meaning to like move according to what the spirit is like telling you. It's a pretty like, get in tune with the discomfort, move towards it, that kind of thing. And B is to befriend that, to befriend the parts, in ourselves and them, that are uncomfortable. And then R is to relate, like recognizing we have things that we can relate to them with, right? So like our own, internal teenagers, right, that is stuck there. And access is to, A is for access, and accessing what is underneath all this behavior. What is the vulnerable stuff underneath all of this external stuff, both in ourselves and them, right? Why are we yelling? Right? What is that protecting? Right? Like what is the need there, right? So it's something to be curious about. And then the C is to create something different, and then than the old dance. And then E is to engage, and it's to not move away from, but engage with your teen. And it's a level of commitment, when you adopt it was a commitment.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. So let's test my memory here. So exhaling is good, because they also tell you that you should take a breath. Like, anytime somebody, pisses you off, or you're angry or something, then you take a breath. So that's really good. Whether it's your teen, whether it's your spouse, whether it's your boss, you exhale and you take a breath. And then movement is
Yeah.
also good, because some people tell you to get up and move out of the, wherever you're sitting or whatever you're doing,
Yeah.
move, because that movement creates a little bit of energy.
Yeah.
And that also helps to calm the situation, calm you, calm the situation,
Yeah.
and all that. And I don't remember what B stands for, but
Befriend.
what was it?
Befriend.
Befriend. All right. Yes. Now that's a little difficult when you've got a very disrespectful teenager at the other end.
Yes, it is very difficult. And so, yeah, it is very difficult. And it's very difficult and impossible unless we befriend the parts of us that really are annoyed by them. You know what I mean? So that really is all of these parts there and here, so yeah, it's
So
really
that is
looking at
obviously something that someone needs in therapy, because
Yeah.
the layman person, that's how here, that when they're triggered by their,
Yes.
imagine the turmoil. You tell your
Yes.
kid, your teenager, oh, you're not going out, and they says, I hate you, you're ruining my life.
Yes. Right.
Typical, right?
Yeah.
So in order for you to befriend,
Yeah.
definitely I would think you need therapy. Now,
Yeah.
the one that I remembered is the next one that comes after it is relating.
Yeah.
Because you can relate to when you were a teenager.
Yes.
You can relate to how important friends are to them.
Yes.
And you can relate that, they want to be liked at school.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And maybe that's why they're not doing their homework, because they want to be popular.
Yeah.
So relating is a bit easier for most people to do. So
yes. You are so right. Relating is so much easier. I guess the challenge of befriending, that word would be maybe, when you befriend somebody, you're just really curious about what their likes and dislikes are, So
true.
I guess maybe that's
Curiosity,
more
right?
of a, just like a curiosity and just, willing to take the time, which is really tough when they're coming at you. I get it. They're coming at you. You're like, what, you friend? But I do remember like a time with my teen where he was really coming at me and I said something and it was something really out of the blue, like, oh, do you want to go and do something together? And I was really shocked that he said yes. Like at the heart of hearts, like he wanted to spend time with me. I was like really shocked. So that was something that, you know what I mean? That I do remember. Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that
I guess
amazing?
my presence
Because
matters.
that's true. Teenagers don't want to spend time with their parents.
No, most don't. But I think they are very lonely. I mean, they say that I was at the Harvard, the Graduate School of Education. I think they did a recent like survey or something, and they said 61% of young adults like are reporting out of their survey anyway. I don't know if it's like a research or data like that, but it was a survey, and 61% said they were really lonely. Yeah.
Well, that I can believe, because it's we have a lot of the social media stuff right now, and maybe there are not a lot of ways to create genuine friendships, and then they're in that period where I'm specifically remembering there's this cutoff line where when the kid gets to 14, they go in their room and close the door.
Yeah. That's the character in this book. This is the character. That's the character in this book is Ty who does that. And so this is like following this family. Yeah.
That's my experience, and it's almost, that somebody that maybe has a 10-year-old that are listening to this right now, they're a preteen, just look for that, because when they get to 14, whatever happens there is they go in the room and they close the door, and they don't want, they cut that communication. So whatever they do in there, you're right, they're lonely.
Right. Yeah. I know.
Right.
Where the character left. Yeah.
Right. So
wondering.
So we're going through, I think you said A is accept, right?
No, it's actually access.
access. All right.
You want to know, because we are both in the, the religious and, just school, any institution or anywhere in society right now, we're so behaviorally focused. And, we want to kind of modify the behavior, we want the results. But here it's like, what is underneath that access, what that vulnerability is, what is driving that behavior. And just being able to do that takes that relating, because you'd be surprised. Teenagers kind of want you to know, even though they act like it's like stand close a little farther, that thing, you know what I mean? Like they're in the stage what they call ambivalence, right? Before they become separate and individuated from their parents. So they're kind of wanting a little bit of that attachment and knowing that there's a home base, but then they want to be, independent. Yeah. So, So accessing what is that underneath that they want. And oftentimes it's love. I want to know that I'm unconditionally accepted and loved. So maybe acceptance is part of that, right? Yeah. So,
okay.
But just like understanding what is that need under there, accessing.
Wow. Yeah. That's difficult, and I can understand where a parent really would need to, because once you understand that, then that is absolutely the way to heal the relationship. Because understanding comes with anything, and if you understand what their hurt is and understand what they're really needing, right? Because we know when they're lashing out, that's just a defense mechanism. So
absolutely. And just even recognizing that, it's huge. When they say I hate you, right? When they say I hate you inside, you wonder what vulnerable part is driving that. Could it be that they're afraid of being hated? Could it be?
Yeah. It's a good way, because we always project what we feel inside. So that's good. So so to me, that's that's the link to understanding and right. And then you have C, which I think is connect,
create.
So
it's like create. But it's hey, these things are not mutually exclusive. I love the words you're coming up with, because they work well too with this. It's to create by connecting, right? So you're creating with them new memories, because this dance becomes old. I hate you, you're grounded, I hate you, leave me alone. Right? This dance is like, it's a repetitious cycle. But what can we create that's new? And it starts with, what can we create inside of ourselves as parents? What is this dance that we're involved in? Like what defense mechanism do we have, right, in this? And just being able to create some new memories, both inside of our own teams and then our teams here under our roof and together, if that makes sense. I mean, an example would be like, instead of saying like you're grounded for saying I hate you, maybe a creating something new would be a different response. What would it be like to go offer a choice? Well, I hear that you hate me. Right? Here's some choices here. Like, what would you like to do? Would you like to talk about it? Or would you like to just be left alone? Or would you know what I mean? Can we talk about it later? Or, like some other choices. Could it be something different? Just something different than the dance.
Yeah. I like that. I like that. Right. Yes. And then we come to the last one, E. What was that again? Right. See another wrong word.
Engage
right?
Longer term. It's kind of like that commitment. It's like staying in that fight. I mean, not with the same dance, but a lot of parents have given up, on their teens, and they live their own lives. They go on vacation, or they, do their thing, and just the teens are just left to themselves. But that's
Yeah.
not what they need. They
Yeah.
still want to know that you care. We care.
Yeah, well, they do that because they don't have, they can't understand them. They're
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah.
And you're right, they're probably just leaving them alone. Hopefully they get out of it when they get to 18 or 19, or maybe
Exactly.
they leave the house or something. But
Exactly.
I can understand is, I mean, I really don't understand that because, the parents still love their children,
Yeah.
and they're still engaged. I can imagine that happening in a marriage where you're not connecting, so you live over there and I live over
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
with a parental relationship,
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to let them do their own thing. But yeah,
Yeah.
so at least
Yeah. I mean,
giving them some ways to engage, right?
yeah. And I guess it's more that long term that you're going to keep checking in. Like
Mhm.
once you have this like new dance, hopefully, and I've seen it. So, I mean, the reason I wrote the book is because there's so much hope, right? And so, to keep it, it's not like once and done, right?
Mhm.
It's going to be it's a relationship. So with any relationship, we're going to keep checking in. We're going to see how those parts are doing with our parts. We're going to, continue to go and create new memories, go and, I don't know, go out to the local game or whatnot, or the World Series that we just lost. Philadelphia. Yeah, but yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's amazing. So I love that. I love that acronym, and I love all that it stands for. And you're right. Sometimes, some of those you might need some help with, but, anyone that's listening or picking up your book might be able to do, a couple of those on their own, but
Yes,
it's just a strategy. And even if you do one or two, it's better than what you're doing
absolutely.
now. You're right. Yelling and there's no connection and the relationship is getting worse and worse. So that is absolutely amazing. Now, you also talk about some strategies that parents can do
Mhm,
to diffuse the tension
mhm, mhm,
in relationships. And,
mhm.
you're probably expanding on that access part, but what are some of the
Right.
strategies that you talk about in the book? Right.
So I would pick maybe three out of the ones that we just spoke about. And the first strategy, as you knew, would be to exhale first and foremost, because we can't just like mindlessly engage and just rev ourselves up. Um, so that is really important to exhale. And as you exhale, I would ask, what part of me is triggered right now? And what part of my teen was just talking? And just even understanding, right? Just using parts language and saying, it's not all of him, it's not all of me. We're not forever kind of, in this animosity, but it's just a part, and understanding that, and most likely a protector, a defense mechanism, and just even understanding that. And then I would, again, the part you say that was really hard was befriend. So then if that's really too hard right now, I would say relate.
Okay.
Relate to try to remember the teen inside of you. And most likely the yelling part might be somehow related to a teen part of us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So just relate. And then the creating something new, I think, is really important. Let's disrupt the old dance. How can we do that? And that
Right.
takes some creativity. And that comes from that spirit inside that I was talking about. And I think all of it is, with all of this, is to remember that access to that healing core spirit is there. I think that is the hope that's in this model, is that, yeah, therapy is helpful and, coaching is great. And when that is not available right away, we do
Mhm.
have something available here. I think that's what it is. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's good. So yeah, so I guess we touched on the strategies earlier, but yeah, I mean, awareness is the important thing in anything, right? So what we're doing here is we're building awareness that there is a method or there is a way to connect with your teenage kids. And one of the things that's going to be new to most of the people that are listening is the parts of them that's responding to the parts of their kid, right? Because that's new information for me, and I'm almost sure it's new information for anyone that's listening. Right. We just feel that it's their hormones, it's their friendship, it's the environment, it's the social media. And
which it is. I mean, yes.
They're an endangered species. You like that, right? But yeah, they are. So coming at it from this point of view, it's good, you know. Right. So.
And that those parts need healing, and they come up because they are needing healing and wanting healing. So it's like the children who are ignored will kind of act out more to get our attention. So
get attention.
That's what our parts do. Yeah.
But I thought that when they get to teenagers, they don't care if they're ignored. The young ones that say, look at me, you know what I mean? When they get to teenagers, I want you to ignore them. But they still want love. They still want to know that you love them.
That's that whole ambivalence,
right. So now one of the hard things to do is like we talked about, befriend, but you also talk about ways that parents can create new patterns to build genuine friendships that last a lifetime. So which is a good thing, because like I said, this person that told me when my son was going through his stuff at 16 that you're going to see that it's going to end at 19, and it did. So the thing though is to, while they're having their issues, right, and you are reacting, to remember that you want lifetime friendship. So how do you teach people to do that?
I think it starts with your relationship with you, which I'm sure you as a coach know, right? It's so important. Is that, are there times when I am wanting to disown parts of me? And a lot of times, like when we see like the teenager child that we specifically don't get along with, usually probably have parts of them that really resonate with parts of us. They're like the most like us, right? And so being able to, even going back to your awareness, even being able to be aware of that and staying in the game and staying there as that that steady hand and steady heart as they're going back and forth and, you know, acting out and all that, and letting them know you're here for the long haul, and not like demonizing them. I think there's just so much, you know, demonization of teens, you know, and at so many levels, right? Even when they're acting out at a societal level, like calling them monsters and whatnot, it's just heartbreaking, you know, but to kind of, you know, let them know that they are not alone. I think that is their greatest fear. I mean, look at the way they just hold on to peers and all this attention on social media because they don't want to be alone, right? Yeah.
Okay, so so the parents can build genuine friendships by what specifically? So you know, give me an example of thinking when something is happening right now that's in it, that you're reacting, you know, whether you're aware that it's a part of you that's reacting to their parts or whatever. Give us a simple thing that we can do that will say to the teen, hey, you know what, this too shall pass, kind of thing. And, you know, I'm going to be your mom after you become a teen. I mean, after you're no longer a teen, you know, give me like a concrete example of that.
Yeah, I think a lot of things that I've seen is like kids who are just, with their bodies and the hormones you're talking about, especially these boys who shoot up, right? And they're really tired all the time. They can't get out of bed. And they're just like late for school all the time. They're not getting their homework done. Or they might have other things going on, and they're just not responsive, right? They look depressed, and they probably are depressed. And I think the initial approach might be, why aren't you getting up? You're late for school again, da, 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 right? Instead of being very curious about it, what might be happening. There might be other things that are going on. And let's take it to a really, what do you call it? Practical example, like on a Sunday, right?
Right.
You're all ready to go to a church, and let's say you're like the church, I don't know, the deacon, or whatever it is, and you got to get there. You got one car, and you got to, and they're not coming, and you want them to come. And so what do? You can either get into a fight, which happens a lot, or what would it be like to step back and say, what would it be like to let him just sleep in? I know that for some people it's like, no way, but what if? What's the worst case scenario that would happen? And what that would reveal is some parts in us as parents, right? What would happen if he didn't go? Well, then then I would feel alone or bad or whatever. And you go into a cascade of thoughts and what ifs that go into a very vulnerable place. And you realize a lot of that fight was actually about you as a mom, right? And your fears kind of projected onto them. So, I mean, just even understanding that, but at a very practical level, I would say, what if we just give them what they need, or offer them something else, like, hey, do you want to go? You can sleep in. What if we had, go out for something after church, or something to that effect, where you're not making that behavior like the fight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that's a very good example, because I can relate to that. I myself go to church, and I mean, I've sat in my car several times and say to my kids, you got 5 minutes, and if you're not in the car in 5 minutes, this train is leaving, and you're gonna stay home. But then that's assuming that they want to go, right? Yeah. Because my girls like dressing up and going to church. Now, whether they went there for God or not, they wanted to go. They were just late, and I don't like being late for church. Yeah. But what happens if you have the kid that don't want to go, and you're forcing them to go? If you leave them home, you're playing right into their whatever. But I think what I'm hearing you say is that if you allow them to have their small victories, then it helps building the relationship. Now, a parent might say, I'm not going to do that, because that's going to open the door where every Sunday they don't want to go because I left them home that one day. But I guess it's just a balancing act that you have to play, or maybe you let them do it the one time, but if they try to do it next week, you're saying, well, then you put your foot down.
And my curiosity would be, what part of the parent is afraid and thinking about the next Sunday and the next Sunday, and what is that about, right? What is that really about? What would happen if that were to happen, right? And a lot of times we see this power struggle between the teen and the parent, right? And you wonder what that's about underneath. So that goes to the accessing, what is the vulnerable need underneath of both the parent and the child that's driving these struggles.
Now, that is deep. That is deep.
I know it is deep. It's deep, but it's also,
I can connect with that. I can actually put my hand on the pulse of that.
Yeah.
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 So,
Because
boy,
for
this is
me, yeah,
complicated
for
stuff.
me, I feel like, when I go into a struggle with my teenage boys who are like tall and big, I I get and I get pushed back. There's a part of me that feels like the little girl on the recess playground that was bullied or something. You know what I mean? There's, do you know what I mean? Like, there's a part of me that was like traumatized before that comes up. I'm like, how dare you, like, talk to me that way, type of response
Right.
that the
Right.
traumatized girl calls on, right?
Hmm.
And so then there's this struggle, right? And then it becomes more about me than what's going on, right?
Them. Right. That's good. That's good. So your book, because this is very interesting, our conversation today. So let's say that the same example that you just
Yeah,
give, like the church example,
yeah, yeah.
right? So in your book, do you kind of tell the parent or make suggestions on how they handle that?
There are some, there's a, it's divided up into, the 7 steps, and in each step, there's an introduction and then there's an in session. So it's almost like free therapy for people who have
Okay,
never been into therapy to kind of
that's
see how
beautiful.
things are fleshed out. Then there's a at home section where you see that family that you're following throughout the book have applied that. And then there's an application section where everybody can kind of like, ask themselves question kind of in a workbook, meditative kind of way. Yeah, and those are also divided up into 3 sections, which is like I think, was it reflection? Let me look. It's some reflections,
Mhm.
some prayers, and some actions. So there is an action section there
Okay.
for
Yeah.
every step. Yeah,
Wow. That's
yeah,
pretty good. That's pretty
yeah,
good
yeah.
because I can see where, wow, parents need help. What do we do with these teenagers?
Right, because we haven't really, I mean, parenting is a lost art, isn't it, in like the modern world, right? In industrial, right? As opposed to agrarian societies where, the village took care of, one
Right.
another, right? So industrialization really became about, you know, modernization, and parenting became a lost art, I feel. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't
We
parented
always,
very well. I mean, I know like I was, but then, I know that nobody's perfect, right? So
Mhm.
like, how do I take my, experiences? How do I come with healing to, pass on to the next generation? So
That is awesome. That's awesome. I can see where this is a really good resource for
mhm.
parents that are have teenagers right now that they have issues with, or and it's also a good preparation for the ones that have the preteens, because you know that they're gonna
Yeah,
go through it, and it's good to be
yes.
prepared. Like they said, you don't learn to swim when you're drowning, right? you,
Yeah, that's
you
so
learn
true.
before.
Yeah, and I'm glad you've mentioned that, because
Mhm.
this isn't actually just for, parents of teens, it's for parents in general. And
Right.
it's for, as I said, like it's for anybody in a relationship, really, because at the end of the day, all of us have these young inner children inside that were wounded, that need healing, whether they're young or teens or whatnot, and we're walking around with unhealed inner children, and that's what we're in relationship with. So having this embrace approach, embrace parenting, it's like embrace parenting the inner children in you and others. So it's actually not only for teens, it's for anybody really who's in a relationship, because we're
Beautiful.
inadvertently, whether we name it or not, we are probably parenting teens, whether we have children or not. Yeah.
Wow, I'm gonna be totally transparent in this response here now, but a couple days ago, I said to myself, my husband is a big guy. He used to be a linebacker, in footballs. He's a big guy, and I said to myself, he's just got this little boy inside of him that's
Yeah,
looking for love.
that's right. That makes so
I
much
just,
sense.
I just recognize that even
Yeah.
though he's big on the outside, there's this little boy in him that's still.
Yeah. And don't a lot of us wives see that in our partners? Don't we see a lot of that in our partners, right? Intimate partners is like husbands, yeah, the little boy inside of them. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Or like you just mentioned, the little girl that's inside of you that's
Yeah,
on the playground that's been bullied
yeah,
or something. We all, yeah, I'm not looking at myself. We always look at the plank in the other person's eye and not
right.
look at the one in us, in our eye.
Yeah,
But I noticed that in him. So
yeah,
I noticed it very recently, which is why it came up here. So yeah, that's pretty good. So if we approach parenting like that,
yeah,
and that's a really, really good approach. It's a really, really good approach. So
yeah.
I
Thank you.
definitely sanction what you're saying.
Thank
Now,
you. Yeah.
so yeah, so when you wrote the book,
Mhm,
I'm also one of the reasons I always ask this question because I
mm,
remember when I wrote my first book and I just like regurgitated what I wanted to say, right?
yeah.
And then when I wrote my second book, I had a coach, and she says, what do you want to say in the first, your introduction that makes
Mm,
people want to read this book? What are
mm,
you going to say at the
mm,
end of it? You know what I mean? So now
mm,
I incorporate this question all the
mhm,
time. So,
mhm,
what do you want
mhm,
people to walk away with,
mhm, mhm,
after reading your book? Like you
mhm,
said, it's not only for Christians, it's
mhm.
not only for parents of
Right.
teenage children,
That's right.
it's for anyone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
Well, thanks for asking that question because it's so important. And I feel like the answer is important, which is at the end of the book, when I wrote my acknowledgments, I realized that it came from an intersectionality of so many communities of hope. And so I think that's the word. I would
Mhm.
want listeners and readers to go away with hope for parenting teens and being in relationships. Sometimes those are the things that drive us to despair, to give up, whatnot. But I just
Yeah,
would want people to go away with hope that this works. This stuff actually really works. I've seen it in my practice. I've
yeah.
seen it in my personal life. My sister is now like a quote unquote convert. So she had a big aspect to bringing this book about, and that don't give up. There's hope, so don't give up on teens. Don't get, and befriend the very thing that you want to shy away from and move away from. I mean, it's hard when the kids are yelling at you and telling you that they hate you, but don't give up on them. Don't walk away. Don't move away. Don't shut the door. Don't keep the door shut. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's what I want people to walk away with, hope.
Well,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah.
Hope is always a good thing.
Yeah.
And it's also, yeah. And as I'm listening to you and I'm putting myself in the shoes of that are somebody that says, I can't deal with this kid. And that's the response. I can't deal with this kid. You know what I mean? So you're giving them hope that even if they try one or two of your embrace methods,
That's
it
right.
will make a difference.
That's right.
You're
Any
right.
one of
It will
those,
make a
right.
difference other than just giving up, and it will
That's
make a
right.
difference. And if you try them all, boy, you'll be a super parent.
Yeah. That is the hope.
You'll
And hope
become a
doesn't
super parent.
disappoint. Yes,
Yeah. Right,
yes.
right,
Thank you.
right. So, all right, Samantha, this was
Yeah.
a fantastic conversation. I mean, this conversation is so needed. Whether, and like I just said, whether it be your relationship with your children,
Yes.
and like I said, sometimes the kids turn back into human beings when they become 19 or so, but sometimes they don't.
Sometimes they
You
don't.
know what I mean?
And then
You
they
can
go
have
into
40
marriages
year
and then
olds,
become, yeah,
right?
become,
You can have
yeah,
40-year-olds,
yes,
you're right.
that's
Like
right.
you said, little kids and big bodies or
Yes,
whatever. So yeah, this information is really good. I hope people go and pick up your book and you know, have hope. So that's great. So
Yes,
tell us where they can connect with you, if you have a website, where they can get the
sure.
book.
Sure. My website is www.swcwellness.com. So SW, like my name, Samantha Woo, C as in counseling, and then wellness.com. So swcwellness.com. And there's a link there to the Amazon website where my book is available in paperback, and also at a discounted 99 cents only up until end of Veterans Day this week for download for Kindle. Yeah. And
Yeah, I did see that. All right. So I thought that was a really good price. I didn't know that was the promotional price. So that's great.
oh. Maybe we should talk afterwards.
I want to extend that.
maybe. Okay. And maybe, yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, listen, I'm
Wow,
going
thank you.
to extend that so that you guys have time to go and get a copy of the book. I want to thank Samantha for coming on the show and giving us this really important information, creating awareness that, yeah, there is hope. There is things that you can do to stop yelling at your kids and connect with them. So I definitely love the embrace method. If you missed anything of our conversation, you can head over to the website or my website, which is my blog. I will have a transcript of my conversation with Samantha, as well as links to her book and her website. So I thank you guys for tuning in. And yeah, you know, if you're listening to this on iTunes, please give us a rating and a review, because I want to keep bringing you quality guests like Samantha every week so that we can help you transform your mind so you can transform your life. Now, we're almost fresh out of time, Samantha. So any last words?
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for like seeing how important this conversation is to not just parents, but for everybody. So I just want to thank you. Those are my last words.
Well,
Yeah.
you are very welcome, right? You're very welcome. Like, you know, I always want to deliver content, and I always want to make people, you know, when they listen to the show, that they're learning something. And I learn along with them, because this is like life school, right? I learn along with them. And so, yeah, I don't have any teenagers in my house right now, but you know, it's good to know these things and to talk to your friends or people that do have teenagers. And of course, you know, my audience, you know,
Yeah.
most of them would probably have children or something that's going to click on this episode. So
Yeah.
thank you guys. Thank you, Samantha. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And until next time, namaste.
Namaste. Thank you.